Welcome to the Elevated Trader Podcast. I am Dr. Kristen Kidgel.
And I am Tracy Ball. Join us every week as we journey into becoming better traders.
We believe becoming better traders involves elevating our skill, our mindset, and our health. In each episode, we will discuss the current book we are exploring, and we invite you to join us on this journey.
Are you ready to elevate your trading, mindset, and health to the next level? Let's do this. And welcome back to the Elevated Trader Podcast. And this is part 3 of Let the Trade Winds Flow by Dr. Harry Stanton, Louise Bedford, and Chris Tate. Kristen, we are back for another episode. We are doing part 3 with chapters 7, 8, and 9. And we are looking at basically the psychology of change, the creation of a desired state, and playing the trading game. I want to start out by the idea that, first of all, your subconscious or your mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly a vivid image or something vividly imagined and something that you've actually experienced. And I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever woken up from a dream and taken moments and times before you realize that you're now awake and it's not reality?
Yeah, you're like,
dreaming?
did that really happen?
Yeah.
Did that really happen? Yeah, that's happened once in a while, I think, for sure.
Has it ever happened to a degree where it's taken you a really long time to recover?
I don't think so, but it sounds like you have a story.
No, well, I mean, I do, but I don't need to get into that. So the point being is that it does. There are moments, and I'm sure other listeners and us, we've both experienced moments where we've come out of that dream and you question whether or not it's real or not. And that's what we're talking about right now, is the fact that vividly imagined things, they can be very hard to distinguish between reality. And that can be a tool. And in this particular chapter, this and the next chapter, he goes through a lot of things or a lot of techniques that people can use to change their belief system and their attitudes. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is the part. Okay, so I'm going to back up just a hair. This is when I decided to go from a Kindle to the actual book, and I bought the book and it arrived. And because I already knew that this was going to be one of those books that I would probably be reading multiple times, especially these next couple chapters. I'll be using them a lot. This book's going to look really worn because I want to try all these techniques. And that's actually what he recommends. And he explains them to you because what you're doing is you're retraining your subconscious. You could be retraining your beliefs and things of that sort. Using visualization is, to me, we were just discussing this, that like, is a term, I think, that has subcategories. Like you imagine it, you imagine what it feels like, you imagine the colors. Like he walks you through the steps. And so what I want to do is try them all. And we plan on doing that, you guys. So I think you're going to see more from us about these couple chapters, because this is when this book slows down and you find yourself like not rushing through this and like, well, this would be me because I'm really into mindset and I'm really into breaking the subconscious patterns and beliefs and all the things that I was raised, and I don't even know that they're affecting me negatively. So I want to dig them out, right? Mm-hmm. So, he quotes some Tony Robbins stuff, and he explains a lot of things, and they explain the importance of it, and they also give examples of like how this would work in a trading example. And then he also goes into getting yourself prepared. And then he also goes into like different examples of stories of actual like traders and what they went through. Because he was a practicing psychologist, he had patients that would seek him out for trading. So he had stories that he puts in this book of like actual events in his patients and what they were exposed to and what he had them do. So I find that pretty fascinating. These couple chapters were really fascinating to me because I think this is a missing link for so many people. If you can get past the woohoo and just say, wow, yeah, there's stuff in my subconscious. It's there. Whether it's there or not, I believe it or not, it's kind of like gravity to me. Like, I
Mm.
can't explain it. I don't know the calculation. Somebody else way smarter than me figured that out, but I know it works. It's holding this microphone to this desk and not floating away like in space. So we know that there's a subconscious and that it's running the majority of our decision making through the day. And if some of it's negatively affecting me, I want to clean it up. So
Mhm.
that's why I'm really stoked about these 2 chapters and all the different things. And there's some homework in here. There's some fill in the blanks and, what do you think about this and that? And, we've seen that in other books. But then he goes into an entire section, which I can appreciate. I do appreciate that they took the time to discuss beliefs, and like what a winnering trader would be thinking with your patience, discipline, and strategy, and what a losing trader beliefs would sound like. And if you're like, ooh, but I've thought that before, yeah, like I'm glad that they did this for us because there's a ton of shall I say, like lists, blocks, images where you can just go back and forth and just maybe circle some. Like I'm going to write all over this book. I already know that's going to happen. So I encourage everybody to get this book, and it'll be on the website. So, Tracy, what
Yes.
did you get out of this chapter? Because I know you were super excited in the beginning. What has this section done for you?
I think the same thing that you were just talking about, because I have recognized and known for some time that I have these things that I want to get out of my belief system. I want to correct them. I want to make those changes of the beliefs and the thinking patterns and the cycles that continue to keep me from reaching my full potential. And I've struggled with figuring out how to actually do that. It seems so easy in practicality, or it seems so easy in theory, but when you go to try and do it, the practicality of it is very challenging, very difficult. So what I think I like the most about this is there's actual definitive techniques that you can try to
Mm-hmm.
implement that work. And it's just a matter of finding which one. It's not just one particular strategy saying do this, but he's giving you multiple ones and saying try them and see which works. And that gives me some hope. That gives me some hope that maybe I can finally overcome some of the obstacles that I have been bumping my head against for such a long time, right?
It's interesting. I don't know if we discussed why you wanted to read this book because I don't know if people understand the significance of these 3 authors and why we really are feeling the need to really pay attention to what this book is telling us. What do you want to give them a little backstory on this because you've actually met Louise Bedford?
I have. I think well, I haven't met her in person, but I've spoken with her. She lives in Australia, and I think she's one of my role models. So I've been inspired by her for a long time. I think the first time I guess she caught my attention was in an interview that she did with Jeremy Newsom, and from there I kind of started following her. So her and Chris have a company together called the Trading Game, and they're in Australia, like I said, and Harry Stanton was one of her mentors and very good friends, and both Chris and Louise know him or knew him. He's passed, but uh, I think just because Louise, I follow what Louise does. I want to learn from her. I want to grow in areas that she's been proven to grow, and she's just an inspiration for me. So that was one of the reasons that I wanted to really dive into this book. And it happened to be a choice because she has other books as well that she's written, which we'll get into later, but they're more technical based. And
Mm.
I just drew a name, which one we were going to do first, and this happened to be the one. And it came at probably the most pivotal point that it could. I mean, we've talked about this so many times before, but when the
Mm-hmm.
student's ready, the teacher appears,
Mm-hmm.
and this book could not have come at the right time. And I'm sure that the next time I pick it up, I will pull out the lessons that I need to pull out at that time for that time in my life. And that's what's so cool about books. It's what's so cool about this podcast. It's what's so cool about conversation. you're going to pick out what you need at that time. And every single time you have that conversation or a different conversation with a different person, but you're going to learn something different. And so, yeah, I was super excited to read this book and get into this. And like I said, it couldn't come at a most applicable time. I'm finding that I need everything that's being written in this, that I'm reading, everything that's been written in here that I'm reading right now is speaking volumes to me right now, and one way or another. And I think that's great. So how about you?
Well, that was kind of what I said I think it was the first episode, that this book wasn't anything what I had expected it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect that I was going to be getting like techniques to retrain my subconscious in a trading book. Like it just, because half the books you and I read, I have like Man Search for Meaning. I didn't know what that book was about. And I was like, whoa, this is deep. But this is like so insightful, and so I kind of actually am enjoying like not knowing a single thing about some of these books. And this one was a great book to after the book that we just finished,
right?
Which is You're Badass by Jen Sincero, because it just kind of like, she just teed it up and they're just like knocking it out of the park, to be honest with you.
That's funny. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't know what this book was going to be about. I haven't read this one yet.
Oh, cool.
So I was caught off a bit off guard, surprisingly, and I'm super excited that my expectations were, they were achieved, if not exceeded, by a significant amount. There's a section back in a previous chapter I just want to jump back to that we didn't touch on, but it says, when does money go from being a positive to a negative force in our lives? And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions that are in here. And when you go through this exercise, you start to identify, which ones apply to me, and is there anything in here that could apply to me that I need to work on? And it wasn't until I read this that I realized there's like 3 out of 7 that I need to work on. Now, all 3 of them come from my own personal opinion of myself. The other 4 have nothing to do with that. It all has to do with, outside things. The 3 that I'm talking about all come from internal things, and I need to work through. So that was insightful, and I just wanted to point that out. There's a lot of really great stuff in this book.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. So was there any final thoughts that you wanted to kind of end with or did cover in this book? Otherwise, we will be moving on to part 4.
Well, at this point, I think it's funny that I just took a glimpse at the cover of this book, and at the bottom, it has like a subtitle that I'm going to read at the close. It says the title, Let the Trade Winds Flow. It says 2nd edition, by the way. That's the edition that we're reading. The authors' names are actually at the top, which is a little reversed what we're used to, but it says Killer Mindset Strategies so you can finally stop shooting yourself in the foot, profit from the markets, and trade like a machine.
Awesome. See you in the next part.
Thank you for joining us today. For more information about the show, as well as our list of current reads, check us out at www.theelevatedtrader.com.
Remember to subscribe and share if you found value in today's episode. See you next week.